Here at Be Freaking Awesome, we believe that life is too short to be anything less than extraordinary. Join us as we explore what it means to live authentically, grow continuously, and have a blast while doing it. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode. I am one of your hosts, Sammy Kinnison, and here with Angela Belford. And today we are going to be talking about the idea of expectations and when can you have expectations of other people? When should you maybe not have expectations of other people? And I don't know, we got a lot of thoughts about this and I'm just like ready to jump in. I feel really passionate and so
I want to set it up because we have been thinking about this episode for a lot of weeks. And we've been talking about disappointment. Last week, of course, we unpacked the trip, which also I have a huge fear of disappointment. And so I'm always like, I plan these cool trips. And then what if it's bad? I did have one trip that I lost my mind. I have it is not an irrational fear that I might be disappointed. I remember calling you crying from the beach in Costa Rica and going, do you know what the worst feeling is on the planet? To feel complete disappointment on a beach. And this is weird because we do vacation. And when we're on vacation, we just, everything is just glorious. But when you spend 3 weeks at the beach, I know, my life's not hard. But it was weird to
have your feelings. Don't
have my feel, and that was when I learned. Like it's okay to have feelings, and it's okay to feel disappointment. No, I'd already learned that.
But feelings
to feel disappointed at the beach, So anyway, I think, and then whenever you dig into disappointment, it's always about expectation. Now, here's something I dislike, and this is what this episode will not do. Is sometimes when I talk about being disappointed, people will just be like, well, that's just because you have high expectations. You should just lower your expectations. And they do it so sassy, and it is not even cynical. It is like whatever past cynical is. It's like
high and mighty, high horse.
Yes,
feeling?
But not in a helpful way, not in a real way. Like, oh, we're just gonna reduce our expectations. Because I am one to pendulum swing. And so sometimes I go, oh, well, if I expect nothing, then I'm just going to turn apathetic. Mm-hmm. That is kind of the tone that they have. You just need a little more apathy in your life.
Just
no.
Be more stoic and everything will be fine.
And we could talk about, and I think stoicism is, see, now look at you conflicting my feelings because I love stoicism. Anyway, so.
That's a really interesting statement, and I think we should follow up on that in another episode.
Yeah. I think it's helpful. It's a helpful tool.
So
you have feelings. Go ahead. Or you have thoughts about this. Tell me.
I think what we are going to do is is what I hope we're going to accomplish. The statement is not lower your expectations.
That's
and
correct.
Then they won't be disappointed.
Exactly.
Clarify your expectations.
Yes.
And make them known. Don't let your expectations be secret. Because that is also something, if you are expecting of other people around you, all right, pull the soapbox out and step in on it, okay? We're just going to roll into it. If you expect something of somebody else around you and you don't let them know what that is, you are doing a disservice. It's not good relationship etiquette to say, well, I expect for my husband to buy me flowers every Friday, but I'm never going to tell him and I'm just going to be mad at him every Friday night when he comes in without flowers. Or whatever the example may be. And so if this is a little bit of our ask and guess culture podcast part 2, that I think that when you expect other people to do something, but you don't let them know, you say, hey, I've got a secret little cheat sheet and rubric that I'm going to grade you off of, but I will not let you know what's on that rubric. Golly, that's just infuriating to me. And so when we Yes, go ahead.
I was going to say, here's another thing we're not going to do, is we're not going to tell you to ignore your boundaries so that when other people present their expectations to you, that doesn't mean you have to agree with them.
Correct.
So that's the other half of it is oh, well, if I make my expectations known, then other people will make their expectations known. And what if I don't want to do it? Let's talk about it.
So we did a team training at the Belford Group in December. Was it all
Mm-hmm.
the way back in December now?
Mm-hmm.
Which is, I think, sometimes kind of funny, that like we hired an external
Of course.
team facilitator, even though we are a team facilitator that we would love to go for your team to help you do trainings. We believe in the things. We think that you should be training and ongoing and growing and developing. So we practice what we preach. Steve Toth was our presenter, and
We'll
he
put
said, like,
his information in the show notes. We love Steve.
yes, we love Steve. He had like almost a throwaway comment in the middle of something that had nothing to do with what we were training about, that wasn't really about this. It was just like a casual in response to something somebody said. And I had to like follow up with him next week and be like, Steve, I think you've like kind of broken my matrix a little bit on this. Like, what? I continue to think about this single statement.
What's
Yes.
funny is that you only got a single statement, and I think it's because I think he looked at me when he said it, because I am on a different team and I had an extensive version of expectations versus agreements. So I love that you like it seized up your brain.
His statement was, if you have an expectation of somebody else and they have not agreed to it, um, we're setting ourselves up poorly. And so expectations, he proposes that we should reframe, and we don't expect things of others. We make agreements with others. So when you make an agreement with somebody else and you say, hey, this is what I'm expecting, this is what I would like to see, do you agree to those terms? It's a little bit like a contract, but in a more casual and social way. And it could be something between a boss and a person they're managing. It could be between two coworkers. Like, hey, I expect that in the morning you are gonna, turn the lights on and not turn music on out loud so we can all focus this morning. Is that something we can agree on? I don't know. When we think about, I think I also heard this right before we went into the holidays, where there's so much family expectations about like what everybody is supposed to do, not supposed to do. And the number of side conversations I was having where it was like, well, I just really want this person to do this. I'm like, well, have you told them? Have they agreed to that? Have they said that that's what they're willing to do? I also experienced that on my own self, and that there are people who, my world has changed a lot in the past year. I have grown from a family of 2 kids to a family of 3 kids through adoption. And there are a lot of people who have expectations of me that I did not agree to. And I don't have the time or capacity to meet everybody else's expectations of me. And so then it's like, I understand that you're disappointed, but I didn't agree to do this thing that you want me to do.
The yours is such an interesting, the adoption, especially an open adoption, because I remarked that you were like, um it's like your kid got married because you now have all these extra in-laws.
Yes.
But I was able to mentally prepare for my child getting married, so I would know I had extra in-laws, and I think you were preparing for adoption. You weren't preparing for like all the extra family members and
Right.
expectations and navigating
And
that.
interestingly, I, in some ways, did prepare, in that Chris and I had extensive conversations with my daughter's birth parents. And we talked a lot about what things are going to look like with those 2 people. Who we didn't talk a lot to, and hindsight, is my daughter's birth grandparents and birth aunts and uncles and birth second cousins twice removed, and all of
Stop it.
these people who, I'm like, wait, hold on, hold on. I am in alignment with my daughter's birth parents, and that is not where any of our conflict has come up. It's not with birth parents, because we talked about what is this going to look like, and do we agree about what this can look like going forward? And don't get me wrong, there's still tension, and
Yeah.
there is still there's really complicated feelings around adoption with the birth parents, but there's not, I don't perceive that there is anger, or I feel like I got a bait and switch, or I don't know, anything like that. Whereas there have definitely been some extended family members that are like, They have a lot of expectations without ever getting my agreement to them. And I think maybe that's why I got so passionate about it, is because I'm like, no, I'm on the receiving end. It is less that I'm on the giving end. I'm sure I am on the giving end, but I can tell you where I have been personally victimized by other people's expectations. That is a Mean
Just
Girls reference, just so you know. Like when,
oh,
yes, I was like, I know you're laughing really hard. It is a pop culture reference. Who here has been personally victimized by Regina George? And everybody raises their hands, including the teachers. So,
sorry. That's a funny way to say that.
it is a funny way to say that, but like it's a lot. And I feel
Okay.
like I'm a little bit too passionate about it to explain it in a way that's teachable. So help draw some things out for us.
Yes, 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 yes. So the way I see this show up is in a lot of workplace culture, and it is often in the way of like, so my role is your marketing consultant. Um, I had a client that was like, I thought that meant you did 100% of my marketing. Like that you're pitching me for speaking, that you're trying to get my book sales, that you are. And he said, and even as I say it out loud, I know from running a business for a long time, there's a difference between sales and marketing. And I'm like, not only that, but we do have an agreement where
Mm-hmm.
we said, I will provide XYZ services. I think some of the time it got a little squishy because there were times where I did like a little above and beyond. And sometimes that above and beyond then becomes the minimum expectation. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is the minimum. This is what you're contracted to get. All of that is bonus. As a matter of fact, I've changed even how I do invoicing, where if I bonus something, I put it on their invoice. I try to put it on their invoice that says, this was 6 extra hours. You were charged 0. Like, so they understand. Or I'll even go like 6 hours at X number of dollars, and then I give them a discount bonus. Because if you do something for somebody and they don't realize how much extra you did for them. So often in workplace culture, it's like I have to set clear deadlines for my staff. I have to say these are exactly what the processes were. I had a situation this week where we met with the client and I had said, okay, you're going to, send that follow-up email. 3 days later, I'm like, so you already sent that follow-up email, right? Oh no, not yet. I'm like, okay, let's be clear. When I am in a meeting with you and I tell you with a client and we say you're going to do something, you're going to finish that within 24 hours. So as soon as that client meeting's over, I need you to set 30 minutes on your calendar and do all the tasks that I assigned you to do in that thing. You are responsible for making sure my promises happen. And 3 days is too long. They're excited. Like, let's get them going. Right.
Yeah.
And so, but I had never said that out loud. So I couldn't be mad at her that she didn't do it. I realized how spoiled I was from other project managers that just like to get those tasks off their task list, and they like to just get them done. And so I was like, okay, cool. Apparently, I need to be very clear in that expectation. I have another client that I can put things on their calendar, and they finally had to say, please don't ever put anything on our calendar, even if the calendar's free, without talking to us first. Thank you. Now I know. I
Mm-hmm.
annoy them sometimes now because I'm like, hi, we have what's interesting is that with them, I'm trying to help the consultant that they've hired really be intentional about that. And so I say out loud, we have an agreement that I won't put anything on your calendar without talking to you. So here's the scenario. Here's why I think it's important. Here's my proposed time that I think that we should meet with that person. Are you okay with that? And it's an easy yes for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've just set them up with all the information. I don't leave it super nebulous. I don't leave it open to why. I don't leave it open to like, when would you like to do that? If they don't like the tentative time, then great, I can push it out 2 weeks, So I think that it has helped me practice it in the workplace culture, and it's easier in the workplace culture because I get to decide. This is my expectation. We're going to do it this way because I'm paying you. What's more challenging, I think, is when we get into personal situations. And I have learned with Barry we have to negotiate a lot when we're traveling. What time do we want to leave? What time do we want to be at the airport? What time do we want to do these things? And so we say a lot, it's like, it's less about like, do you agree to this? And we've started adding some things like, okay, well, I propose, blah, 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 blah. Is that acceptable to you? And then he will be like, well, here's the thing, the factor I'm thinking about. We don't know when the train runs. We could miss a train. I'm
Mhm.
not comfortable potentially being 20 minutes late. Great. Now we'll manage. So those are some kind of easy agreements to negotiate when it's like, here's a time, here's a reason. I think it's less easy when it's like, who's making dinner every night, or
But I think that while that's less easy, I think it's still really important
I
to
agree.
be clear about.
Hmm.
And this is where I think you end up with a lot of resentment in different situations, is because it's like, oh, well, they always expect me to do this. Well,
Yes.
I will say I went and voted yesterday, and prior to voting, I was like on the way there, I was getting questions from the people who I usually go to vote with. And I was like, I have not had time to thoroughly research all of everything on your ballot. And they were like, well, I just expected you would because you have before. And I'm like, right,
That's a great expectation.
right. You expected that I could because I have before, but you didn't actually say it out loud. You didn't actually ask me, you didn't actually say to me, well, I was expecting you to tell me who all I should vote for, and I wasn't going to research the candidates myself. Which, like, I'm just
That's a
perturbed.
whole other episode. It's a whole other
I
episode.
don't like that, the baseline. And yeah, but there is this expectation that, like, if now I do know that there are some times where there's like complicated measures to be voting on. And
Hmm.
I do know people in my life who are like, I can trust that Sammy has probably researched this and I want to hear what she has to say about it or
Right.
hear what her thoughts are. And I try really hard to like make a point to be like, well, if you feel this way, if you would align with this, if you prioritize
Right.
these things, you would vote this way. And if you do the opposite, you would vote this way, and kind of help try to break it down. But that doesn't mean that I have agreed to be everyone's voter 411 on all of the issues and everything
Which
going
is a
on.
great resource, vote411.org. Great
Exactly.
resource by the League of
Oh,
Women Voters.
League of Women
Shout
Voters.
out. Sorry.
No, I threw the plug for you. And so I don't know. I think that when you are feeling resentment or feeling disappointment, especially when it comes to other human beings in your life, ask yourself, like, did I expect something that I did not actually have agreement to? Did this
Hmm.
person say that they were going to do this thing or not do this thing or not? Or was it just something in my head? And it's a framework that you can think about for next time. And how can I be more clear? How can I have a conversation proactively as opposed to reactively? And that's a little bit the ask and guess. Can I be forward versus just assuming?
I do want to share a practical, super tangible, practical tool that I learned from one of my early coaches, Kim Hodis. And her kids were a little bit older. They were like in the not able to drive yet, but old enough to like they could help with dinner. And she was fanatical about the weekly family meeting. And like that was an iron rock on their calendar. And during that iron rock, everybody had to pull out their calendar. You had to look and see, do you have a science project coming up? Do you have a ball game coming up? Who's going to be home for dinner on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? They had nights of the week that were like their standard nights that like each kid, they had macaroni and cheese on Tuesdays a lot because that was Rob's night to cook, right? And so, but Rob didn't have tennis on Tuesdays or whatever it was. And so they, divvied out the dinner cooking, and if you had a project that you didn't bring up that you needed some tools for, like, oh, I need a poster board, whatever, there was no guarantee that your parents were going to drop what they were doing and run to the store on Wednesday night. Now, those of us with ADHD kids, we have to manage this a little bit differently. We have to be careful about that. But there is an element where it's like, oh, we have soccer and we're in charge of soccer snacks. So we want to get the grocery list created and prepared. And it I think she told me it was like a 5 or 6 years that this really worked well for their family in keeping alignment on expectations, clarity. It taught the kids a lot of really great, organization tools, something super intentional. I've heard of couples meeting for their money date night once a month where they go around the 15th of the month and they sit down with their budget spreadsheet, and that could be a way that you can incorporate some expectations into how are we going to spend our money, and get some agreements on
Mhm.
that. So those are two practical, or I guess one practical is like literally meet with the intention of setting those expectations.
I think also, as somebody who has lots of experience with extended family and in-laws, when gatherings are going to happen, events are going to happen, all of the things, a cheating way, if you need to like, slow pitch it to be like, hey, I got a lot of things going on and I just want to make sure to say all the things out loud so I don't miss it later. Can I run through the plan with you? Can I run through what I'm thinking? Can I talk about what the expectations are? I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything and that this all sounds right to you. And do that and walk through. When you come to my kid's birthday party, you just get to hang out with the other adults. You're not necessarily, going to be making the food or doing the thing, or vice versa. Or can you help me to be cleaning up during the birthday party and looking for the trash to throw away? I don't know. Those There are ways that you can present that to say, hey, before you come into town to stay at my house, before I come into town to stay at your house, can I just walk through what I'm thinking and make sure that that aligns with what you're thinking, and then go
I
from
love that
there?
because it's not the super confrontational. Okay, we need to set our expectations and agreements. But it's just like, I have a lot going on. Can I just make sure that we're on the same page?
Yeah.
It can be super, like, relaxed like that on the in-law thing.
And it doesn't, yeah, because it doesn't have to be a big conflict. It can just be, hey, I just want to. I'm really looking forward to like an easy weekend where we're not doing lots of extra stuff and projects. Does that align with you versus coming into town being like, oh, hey, our son's back in town for the weekend. Here's the honey-do list. Um, it's just
Right.
different, and there's all those things, and so
Or even
taking
like, "Hey, I really need help with this thing. Can I feed you dinner and you come over and help me with this thing?" And
right.
asking, how do you handle it when people are, when they're not as maybe emotionally mature as
When
this
they're on the other
conversation?
side and they're not making their expectations known.
Yes, and that, or they make their expectations known and you're not willing to do it. How do you navigate that?
Mm. So the ones where people don't make their expectations known, I stand firm in that you can say, "Oh, that's not what I had on my plan for the evening. I'm not here to do that. I'm here to hang out and to enjoy company together, to do whatever. Can we schedule another time to do that? Or is there somebody you can call? Or can I connect you with something?" You also can say, "No, that's not what I'm doing." I think that this definitely goes back to boundaries, and there are people who are going to be a lot more toxic and passive aggressive and all of the things. I have been reading Mel Robbins' let them theory,
Mhm.
and let them be disappointed, let them have their expectations, let them learn. It's also not your responsibility to manage their disappointment. That's not your job. And so at the end of the day, as sometimes as hard as it is, even with people who are not very healthy, it's not your job to mitigate their disappointment and to manage all of their emotions in this. So I think there's that, which is sometimes just acceptance. As far as you're unwilling to do it, no is a full sentence. And if you want to make it softer than that, there are lots of ways to like, oh, that's not what I agreed to. I did not know that was your expectation. Had I known, I might have acted differently. I might have behaved differently. Next time, can you please make sure to tell me in advance? I listened to this really cool podcast episode with these two people who talked about how you should let your expectations be known in advance. would love for you to listen to it, and maybe we can decide this is going to be our new family operating system. Go listen to it and let me know your thoughts.
I love that idea. And one of the things I say, and again, I want to throw it to the business side. I will say to clients, okay, so it is February 2027, and we are having this annual meeting, and you're deliriously happy. What has gone on this week? I think you could do that in a lesser form. Like, okay, let's say that we get to December 27th, and we've had a great Christmas. What does that look like? We played games, because I know families that are like, I married into a family and all they do is watch movies the whole holiday. And that is the worst thing because they're not connecting and they're just sitting there. And I could watch movies at home by myself and I hate it. I know other people that marry into families that are like, oh my God, can they please stop playing games? All I want to do is watch movies and chillax and laugh and go, oh, I love this part. And it's more fun to watch movies with a family member because then it brings back all these other memories. And like, those are two opposite things. Sit and play games the whole time or sit and watch movies the whole time. That's my most easy because both of those are like those are both
Well,
considered fun activities. It's an easy contrast because it's like neither
sure.
of those are inherently bad. If neither of those are toxic,
One of those
it's
is
just a
definitely better than the others, though.
stop it. What says the game player, who has over 100 games.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that is I love that example simply because it's not like, oh, one person's bad, one person's good, right?
Right.
It's like, what would it look like? And
Mhm.
so it'll be like, my expectation is this Sunday afternoon, we are going to get out and clean up the yard and do the things. And my husband's like, I want to take a nap.
Yeah.
Like, and okay, so we got to blend that together.
The other thing, if you, in the work setting, if you are an employee, not a boss, you have a boss, and your boss says, I'm expecting these things of you, you did have a contract of what is your job expectation. Now, this is really good, like, reminder that, like, for posterity's sake, your job description should be updated if you're going to have a dramatic change in your job, because
Right.
there are certain things that's like, I agreed to do this work in exchange for this amount of money. And if you want to dramatically change that, this is the expectation that I have. This is the
This the
literal
agreement.
agreement. This is the literal agreement. Because there are times where I know people who end up getting asked to take on huge extra projects. And I often am asking my friends, I'm like, so how much more money are they going to pay you for doing more work? I'm like, well, it doesn't work that way. And, you got to be a good team player and all these things. And I'm like, or you're going to get used and abused by your corporate system that is just going to keep pushing until you say, hey, I'm actually not okay with pushing anymore.
Yeah.
This is, I think, part of why quiet quitting became a really big thing. Is everybody was like, quiet quitting is just doing the expectations of my job and that's it, doing the things I agreed to do and not doing more, which is
Yep.
why I think it's kind of a dumb thing for corporations to be mad about. But I don't know. I like, you are allowed to just do what is expected of you in that situation. So that would be the way that I would gently push back, try to hold
And
boundaries.
I will say that if there is a potential promotion and they say, hey, we are looking for somebody in this promotion setting to demonstrate their ability to do that job before they get that job, and they lay that out and
Mhm.
you are working toward a goal, because I also don't want people to hear that we believe you should just foster mediocrity, and doing your job is not mediocrity. I'm not saying that, but there are times where it's like, okay, we've got a position that's going to come open. Who's the right fit? Are you willing for the next month
Mhm.
to do kind of a little bit more of the role to see if it might be a good fit for you? That is absolutely part of corporate culture, and um you get to decide if that's something you're comfortable with.
Exactly. You get to decide if that's something you want to agree to or not. And if you want to agree to it, go for it. Do the thing.
And because other people don't do that, they just hop to the next company and they jump up like 3 rungs on the ladder without having to do that extra work, with getting a lot of extra money and getting the extra, and that's another way to get that promotion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Angela, do you have any wrap up thoughts on expectations and agreements for folks?
Most of what we proposed today's episode about holding boundaries, having hard conversations, and being able to express your needs and ask people to meet those needs, they kind of assume a baseline of you being strong and healthy and working through your core beliefs. And it's been interesting during my coaching sessions the last probably 6 months. I've seen people that are like, oh, I could never have that conversation. And then we have a session where we work through the I don't belong belief and we get solid on that and we dig out that root. And then they go, oh, I can have that conversation because I know I belong to me. Or
Hmm.
I can't have that conversation because I'm afraid of the rejection and it'll make me feel like I'm not lovable. And then we resolve that I'm not lovable. Oh, I love myself. So even if this person rejects me, I'm still going to love me. So I think there is just a baseline of assumption. So if some of these feel really hard for you, it may be a good indicator light. It may be a little check engine light coming on that says, "Ooh, I wonder what's beneath that is making that feel really hard to have that conversation, to set that boundary, to say or to have your needs met."
I think that's really, really good. And weirdly, what are the agreements and expectations you have of yourself?
Mm.
Because Angela, you've said it before, we'll say it again. The oftentimes you are judging other people to the level that you are judging yourself, and you are expecting of other people what you expect of yourself. And sometimes the expectations of yourself are unrealistic and unreasonable and not necessarily what they need to be. So that's my thought is look inward. Super fun to look outward, super fun to point out where everybody else is like doing this wrong. And also, mm, at a certain point, the heavy and annoying part of the work is that looking at ourselves can be really helpful too.
Maybe it's hard, or maybe it's actually control. So many of us struggle with, like, being out of control, and whenever I figure out it's me, I'm like, "Well, praise God, I can only fix me. I can't
Hmm.
fix everybody else." So, there's an element where, personally, I am like, "Oh, well, at least I can do something about that if it's me." So, I think of it as encouraging.
That's a really good perspective. I'm going to take that. Angela, this has been so good, so much fun. And next week, I'm really excited. Next week, we're going to be digging in on how to make friends in the year 2026. Or whatever year it is that you happen to be listening to this. But we're going to be talking a little bit more. I feel like this is something that we almost revisit annually of what are the new things we're thinking about and learning when it comes to friendship, because it's different all the time, and we learn new things as we continue to go, and it's something that really matters. So I'm really excited for that conversation and hope you guys tune in to listen next week for that. So until next time, everyone, we hope you guys go be freaking awesome.